Coming up on episode 110 of the Behind the Back podcast, San Francisco 49ers go on the road to take on the Cardinals in a divisional matchup. Ben gives his keys to the game, plus some storylines happening around SF. And then we pivot over to Philadelphia Eagles. A.J. Brown, more drama coming off of a win. Who knew? What a shocker. We break down our opinion on that, as well as some of the discourse around the Eagles before we break down a huge primetime matchup with the Lions. And then we go over to Sacramento, where we thought our conversations were going to be shorter, but it feels like we're going back and forth in circles on our Sacramento Kings. He's done with them, so am I. With that being said, y'all, let's get it. All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Back podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Marcos Coda Negrona. Beside me here, as always, is Ben, the Jet. Reds, Ben, my brother, how are you doing today?
You know, the grass is green, sky is blue. Well, actually, it's gray skies right now, but I can't complain too much, man. It's been a good week so far.
I love to hear it. All right. So, as you guys heard in the intro, we got a lot of juicy stuff to talk about. If this is your first time on the Behind the Back podcast, welcome. We appreciate your time. We will make it worth your while. For you Niners fans out there, it's your lucky day. We're starting with you guys today, coming off of a, disappointing loss to the Rams. But hey, split the series, that partially to be expected in the division. But you guys are now moving on to your next division rival, the Arizona Cardinals. So, what's the news coming out of Niners camp going into this game?
Well, the Niners have been on kind of this alternating win-loss streak here for a few weeks. And so the feeling right now is that, we've got a good shot at winning this game. The Niners are 2.5 point favorites in Arizona. Right now you're looking at Arizona and you're thinking, based on how the Niners have, been going this trajectory of the season, they've got a good shot. Then you hear Marvin Harrison Jr. is not going to be playing. You hear it's Jacoby Brissett, which, that was already going to happen, which I think is actually better for the Cardinals. They've got injuries up and down their roster. So the vibe right now is that the 49ers have a legit shot at this game, which they should. But this game to me has a certain level of importance based on the remainder of your schedule. And I want to kind of get into the schedule real quick before I do a quick breakdown of this game. So you got the Cardinals on Sunday. Then you've got the Panthers at your house. Then you go to Cleveland and play the Browns. Then you're back home against the Titans. And then you have that's coming off the bye. So the bye is between the Browns and the Titans. Then you go to Indianapolis and you play the Colts. Then you see the Bears at your house. And then you see the Seahawks to finish the season at your house. So these next four games, the Panthers, the Browns, or the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Browns, and the Titans, they're big games. This is a team, the Niners, who are absolutely in contention for the playoffs. They're a wild card team right now. Not as the playoffs sit, but you should pretty much chalk them up as that. Because if we look at the strength of schedule remaining for the 49ers and how it stacks up for the rest of the team. Now, I'm pulling these stats from Warren Sharp. So these stats are all per Warren Sharp, and I know Marcos knows about him. NFL teams with the easiest remaining schedule in 2025. The Saints, number 1. The Buccaneers, number 2. San Francisco, number 3. Titans, number 4. And the Falcons, number 5. Teams with the hardest remaining schedules. Marcos, I know you're up there. Minnesota's number 1. Giants are number 2. Love that. Chicago's number 3. Philly's number 4. And Seattle's number 5. So 5 of the 7 games remaining are at home for the 49ers. 4 of them are against subpar, I'm going to call it subpar teams. The NFC playoff picture right now, Philly's number 1, Seattle's 2, Detroit, Tampa, Rams, Bears, Packers. Then you got the Niners at 8th. Okay. Philly's got the 4th hardest remaining, like I said. Seattle's got the 5th hardest remaining. Seattle still needs to see the Rams. The Rams still need to see Seattle. Chicago's got the 3rd remaining, and they're in 6th right now, the 3rd hardest remaining. So there is going to be so much movement here in the NFC within the next 7 weeks that really saying that someone's necessarily a lock for the playoffs is hard to say right now. But when you look at these games, these upcoming games for the 49ers, you've got to think, based on how Kyle Shanahan's teams tend to play in the later stages of the season, that the 49ers have a really good shot at making a run of things. But it's going to go one of two ways. And it's either what I'm going to call destruction or detrimental, or you're going to absolutely toast the remaining schedule. Like, you're going to go off. It's not going to be a back and forth thing, I don't think. I think you're going to see this team either crash out and burn and then just kind of close out the year how it is, or you're going to see this team go on a run. So this is kind of an important game for the 49ers, in my opinion, not just because, it's a divisional game. You want to try and close this out. Not necessarily that the Cardinals are competing for a spot, but you always want to have that upper edge and that upper hand on them. If you want to build some momentum going into this easier stretch of football, now's the time to do it. And this Browns game in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks, I'm hearing 49ers fans and some media talk about this game, and they're like, yeah, Dylan Gabriel, not that great. Myles Garrett, he's probably going to blow up the game a bit, right? Like, he's a game changer. But, we should be able to get out there with a win. While I would love to agree with you, I think we absolutely should. This in Cleveland, guys. Who knows what the weather's going to look like? This is November 30th when this ball game's going to happen. There's been snow on the ground on November 30th before there. So who knows what that game's going to look like from a weather standpoint, right? There's a whole bunch of factors that remain in the rest of the season. Health is going to be a factor. The Colts, this is a team who, while they're cooking teams that don't necessarily tell you that you're a dominant team. And they've got a stretch of football here where we're going to learn some things about Indianapolis. So, and same can kind of be said about the Bears. So I don't know. I'm looking at the rest of the schedule, and these next 4 weeks, I'm going to say the 49ers, if they go 3-1, they're a wild card team. You go 4-0, you have a shot at winning the wild card game and maybe pushing somebody, depending on your matchup, pushing somebody to a difficult, second round. If you split it, if you go 2-2, I don't think you stand a great chance at making the playoffs. So this is why this next stretch, you want to start this thing off hot against the Cardinals. I'm going to get into the Cardinals here, but do you have any thoughts on these next 4 games and this upcoming schedule for the 49ers?
I agree with pretty much everything you said about where the Niners could be. I was going to ask you if with the exercise, if you thought that 10 wins was going to be enough to get you in that 7th seed. So based off of what you were telling me about these next 4, if you guys do go 4-0, you're feeling like you have a pretty good shot to do that. Let me ask you this too. Let's say you do peel off the 4 wins here, and then let's say against the Colts, the Bears, and the Seahawks, you guys don't win those games, but you somehow get into the 7th seed. So you sneak in at 10-7, assuming you win all 4. Would that make you feel better or worse going into the playoffs, knowing that you just got in, but you're coming off of 3 tough losses, versus if you found a way to win 1 or 2 of those games along the way?
I mean, you're always going to feel better going into the playoffs on a win streak versus a losing streak. I would feel, I'll say this, I'll feel a lot better if they're winning versus if they're losing. If they're losing, you don't have the momentum at that point. You've pretty much got to, grind it out. You've got to really dig deep for that momentum to kick things off. This is a 49ers organization that is used to the playoffs now, in the past 5 years, 6 years. So this isn't new to them. And even ending the season on a losing streak, I wouldn't chalk it up as, well, we're toast, it's over. I would feel like they could look like a different ball ball team when it comes to the first round of the playoffs, that wild card matchup. But I mean, dude, you know best. We all do. Like football it's momentum based. From play to play, from game to game, week to week. Like this is a game of momentum, and to have any form of good momentum, positive momentum going into the playoffs is huge. So I would feel better about winning, of course.
No, that makes sense. I think the NFC is going to spend a lot of time beating itself up, like you said, this next stretch. I mean, the Eagles are going to be chopping away at the rest of the NFC North, and we're going to be each other's friends here over the next few weeks, trying to, stack, knock down some of these teams kind of in our way a little bit. The Eagles have a viable path to the 1 seed, and if they take care of business this weekend, and we'll talk about that, like things are looking pretty good. So I think that we'll need the Niners, who are going to be facing some of these teams in our way. That the good thing about what you guys have done early in the season too, like with wins against Tampa and stuff, that's earned you some tiebreakers. That you beat the Seahawks too if you guys somehow pull off the second game, depending on what that's way later, so we'll see what happens then. But like if that happens, you guys have put yourself in a spot to win some tiebreakers here. So I think that's really important, especially when you're fighting for seeding in the wild card. And I agree. I actually do think that the wild card is going to come down to, for that 7th seed, it's going to come down to the Packers, the Bears, or the Niners. I think it's going to be one of those 3 teams. Especially because of what happened to the Packers on Monday. So I think it's just going to be tough for the Niners, but I think this is the stretch, like you said, to get momentum. This is the right time. I didn't realize coming into this that the schedule was kind of laid out the way it was. Like having a stretch like this is really important, and I also think that the Niners are aware that like the fans may talk a certain kind of way and feel a certain like level of confidence, but the players know that this is a banged up team and they have to outperform the players on their roster to keep winning these games. So I don't think they're going to take any games lightly either. So this is a good spot for you guys. I like it.
Yeah, agreed. And, Kendrick Bourne, he's funny, man. I love KB. I'm thrilled to have him back as a 49er. But he was asked about like this win-loss streak that the Niners have been on now, and kind of what's been going into it. Like, why is this a thing? And his words, man, I'll just use the 2 words, the quick phrase that he used, and that's that the 49ers have been smelling their own junk. And what he means by that is that, like, you get a win and you feel like you're grooving and they kind of settle in. And I don't know if it's like a lack of preparation going into the next game or if it's a mindset thing or whatever, but they're not approaching every single game as if like it's a new week, a new opportunity, like ready to go, let's go. It's it's in a lot of ways similar to what I saw last season with this Niners team when they wanted to just early on get to the playoffs. They were just trying to, get through the regular season, stack whatever they could, and then lock in late in the season. So I think if the 49ers are able to kind of figure out whatever's going on with, obviously you chalk it up to the injuries, right? But this preparation and being ready to play, at every level, every facet of your team, like you lock in this stretch and really stack some wins, I think you can ride that momentum. Even with a couple losses at the end of the season, you still have some momentum. You feel like you're cooking. You're probably going to get Brandon Ayuk back. Like Ricky Pearsall is ramping up. You probably have Brock Purdy back by then. And if anybody watched my post game, my opinions on that quarterback situation. I'll address it here in a minute. But there's opportunities here for this team, and I think if they really lock in on this stretch, they can find themselves in a good spot. So let's talk about this Cardinals game. Cardinals, like I said, the Niners are 2.5-point favorites going into Arizona. This game is at 105 on Sunday, and this is an interesting one, Marcos, because for the first time this season, the 49ers have a shallower injury chart and report than whatever the other team is on the other side. I know, wild. So I'm not even necessarily going to get into all of them. I'm going to highlight some of the big ones. So Marvin Harrison, he is not going to play Sunday. He underwent a appendicitis surgery over the weekend, and he's going to be recovering from that. So wish him well. That's wild. Hopefully that heals up quick. So he's not going to be there. That's big. Already you knew that you weren't going to run into Kyler Murray because Kyler Murray's probably been shut down for the rest of the season at this point. And I think it's better for the Cardinals. Real quickly on that, I think that Kyler Murray, the way that he plays the quarterback position isn't as smooth as somebody like a Jacoby Brissett. I think, for Kyler, it's like, what is he known for? Escaping the pocket and running around like a toddler and creating opportunities that way. I think from a timing standpoint and actually going through your reads and progressions, like Jacoby Brissett is the better option. So Jacoby still makes a lot of mistakes. He's not a great quarterback by any stretch. Neither one of them boys is a great quarterback. But Jacoby is, at this point, he's the guy you're going to lean on. You're not going to go after. You're not going to say that Kedon Slovis is a better option right now, right? So who is Jacoby going to be throwing to? Trey McBride. Trey McBride lit up the 49ers for 78 yards in week 3 when we had Fred Warner. This time around, there's no Fred Warner. So this is already one of my keys for the game. I'm going to be watching the linebackers because on Sunday, the linebacker play was horrendous. I mean, Luke Gifford, terrible in coverage. D. Winters, really bad in coverage. And I'm disappointed. D. Winters was my guy. Like, going into training camp, like, you were like, who's one of the guys that you're keeping an eye on in this? And my first guy was D. Winters. Like, this dude's a dog. Like, he is the Dre Greenlaw replacement. And I'm not going to lie. Through the first 3-4 weeks of the season when we had Fred Warner out there, them boys were balling together. But after that, without having your captain, your defense out there, without having the captain of that linebacker group specifically out there, this linebacker core is pretty lost. I want to see Nick Martin. I want to see a lot of these players. I want to see a Nick Martin. I want to see a Chase Lucas. I mean, I don't think that there's reasons why these guys shouldn't be on the field right now, or at least in certain times, but I digress. The linebacker core, the linebacker group is what I'm going to be watching on and how they handle this Trey McBride weapon on Sunday, because this is going to be the top target for Jacoby Brissett. I think if the 49ers are able to slow down Trey McBride and, find some way of shutting down the middle of the field and force them to kind of go outside of what they feel comfortable in, they'll have a better chance.
No, absolutely. And I agree with your, Kyler, Jacoby, breakdown of like why Jacoby works better for this version of the Cardinals. I think Jacoby has proven that he can at least use the weapons that are on this offense. And like you said, yes, Marvin Harrison Jr., I hope you get better. We hope you get better. And dealing with that sucks. But they still have weapons. And outside of Trey, they got Michael Wilson, who always seems to play well against you guys too. Jonathan Gannon's defense, they got Walter Nolan. He played pretty well a couple weeks ago. Now they're starting to get some of their pieces back. It's a divisional game. It's never a cupcake game. It's better that it's, on a normal Sunday. That makes it a little bit less unpredictable. But I like, what you guys have, defensively going into it. I don't know about your pressure. Maybe you can speak to that on your defensive line pressure, if they're going to be able to disrupt Jacoby enough. I believe the Niners will have opportunities. I think Jacoby might throw a ball here or there that like you guys just need to kind of come up with. So hopefully when those opportunities come, you guys take advantage of that. So yeah, your Nick Martin situation's interesting too, because you drafted this guy in the 3rd round. And why hasn't he seen the field when there's all these injuries? And you're talking about guys who clearly aren't playing well and maybe playing through something. And you should just give the young guy a chance. If he gets cooked, it's like Keeley. If he gets cooked, he gets cooked, and then you just bench him again. Like, you can always bench him again, but he's never going to get better if he doesn't see any time. So I agree with you on that sentiment too. But I think you guys have a tough matchup ahead of you. It's always nice to have this. This one's in Arizona, correct? Mm-hmm. So it's it's tough to go on the road, especially without your main guys. But I feel pretty good about what you guys got going into this one.
Yeah, and dialing up the pressure on the 49ers side is going to be the key, because what did we see on Sunday? A lack of pressure to Matt Stafford. That dude was wheeling and dealing. Like, he's been doing that all year already. when he feels no pressure, like he's going to do that. And it exposed so many weaknesses. Like this was my biggest concern when you didn't make that splash move at the deadline for that pass rusher. While I understand, like, you know, they made calls, like, you know, you tried to work some of these deals to, you know, didn't have to give up so much of your, you know, of your future stock for guys. I get that. But, you know, this is kind of what you were going to run into. You're already so injured at any defensive level, specifically now with your defensive line, you've been dealing with these injuries. And now just from, you know, a standpoint of a lack of skill, there's just, it's not that deep. The edge position and that defensive line isn't that deep. You're not able to get home on a lot of these quarterbacks. So dialing up pressure in this one's going to be big. And I'm curious to see, based on, you know, how Saleh and that unit performed last week, how do they bounce back this week and really address this, you know, this pass rush, because the linebacker's not changing. The secondary isn't changing. Both of those got severely exposed with the lack of pass rush. And one thing that Arizona does have a really good unit of, and that's the pass rush. I mean, their pass rush specifically, it's fast, it's dominant. Like, that's where they will make a little bit of noise. You know, they've got the Josh Sweat, they've got Calais Campbell, they've got Dalvin Tomlinson, like Darius Robinson. I know he's questionable right now, but Walter Nolan, like you said, like there's dudes on that team, that on that pass rush unit, that will tear your quarterback up if that offensive line isn't ready. And, you know, offensive line for the 49ers has been up and down this year. Last week, surprisingly well. I think they handled the Rams defensive line really well. You know, this week is going to be another test for them. It's like, you know, how well can you do? And we'll kind of see. I don't think Jake Brendel should be in there anymore, but PFF says he's one of the like top 10 best in the league at his position. And I'm like, I have choice words for PFF. I'll leave it at that though. So let's get into my final keys here. Like I said, that linebacker core needs to be much better this week. Trey McBride, like I said, at 78 yards versus the Niners in week 3. That was with Fred Warner. This time you have no Fred Warner. How do you handle that? How do you adjust? Second key, eliminate the pass rush of the Cardinals entirely with quick plays and solid O-line production. You did it last week. This week, more quick plays, more time, like, you know, more just consistent, get your quarterback in a groove, whoever it is, whether it's Brock or Mac. And I'll have a quick thing on that. And then last key, offense needs to cook. You know, George Kittle said it best in his postgame last weekend. Like, this offense needs to be better with the veterans that they have out there. This team recognizes how beat up this defense is from an injury standpoint. They need to get cooking early and consistently throughout this game if they want a chance, because your defense needs a cushion at this point. If your defense is going to be the thing that's, you know, you're asking to win a game right now, that's a tough ask for this unit. So those are the big keys. Now, I want to talk quarterbacks before we move on. I said in my post game, and if you haven't checked it out yet, please do. It was fun. I actually enjoyed the post game, even though the 49ers got rocked all game long. But I talked about Brock versus Mac and whether it makes sense to bring Brock back now or just roll Mac the rest of the season. Brady was asked about it pregame. And Brady's going to have a biased opinion, because how did his career start? He was a guy thrown into a game and took over the rest of the season, and from there was history. So this is, you know, what I said in my postgame, if you haven't checked it out, was that I believe it wouldn't be a terrible option for the 49ers to say Mac Jones is going to be our guy the rest of this year because he's in a groove. It's working offensively. Shanny's already said Brock's toe is not going to be 100% the rest of the season. Brock's mobility is a big part of his game and why Brock is as fun to watch as he is. It's how he's able to create plays from nothing, escape a pocket, create time, create an opportunity for him to make a play. If he doesn't have that, we've seen what that looks like and he not a great quarterback at that point. And you take away his power like that, and now he's getting hit left and right. So while I'm concerned about the re-aggravation of the toe, if he's not able to move properly and fully, now I'm worried about him getting hit by a Josh Sweat or by any pass rusher or any defensive lineman. And then you have an oblique injury, then you have a shoulder injury, then you have, this, that, or the other thing. So I'm just weighing that, and I'm looking at, it's week 10, week 11 now. Like, you're going to have to shake off rust if this is the week to come back. If Purdy comes back this week, there's going to be rust. That's real. How much rust? It's a question, right? I don't know. I'm not going to be mad if I see Purdy in this game. I love Purdy. Purdy is my boy. I've been high on him for a while. I also come to a realization that like a lot of his success and quarterback success for the 49ers comes through Kyle Shanahan. That's not a bad thing. So whoever they roll out on Sunday needs to get this offense cooking quick and needs to be consistent throughout the game. I think if you're going to bet on anything in this game, you probably take a Trey McBride anytime tutty. You probably take Eddie Pinedo with, 2 field goals in this game. Like these are the things you kind of watch out for. So I have the 49ers winning this game. I have it being a higher scoring ball game, Marcos. I have it going 30-24 49ers.
I love that. No, I think those are great keys. I think the Niners have what it takes to, handle the Cardinals without not too much issue. But I think the Cardinals are also coming off a really demoralizing loss to the Seahawks too. It was not a pretty game. It was over by the first quarter. And sometimes for a team that you get punched like that, especially after beating the Cowboys the way that they did, I don't know, man. They're going to want to come out swinging, but they are vulnerable, and they're very vulnerable. I know you guys got beat, but you guys were in it. It felt like, if some things went your way, it would have been even more closely contested. So I think that this is going to be a competitive game, but it's going to be fun. And I agree with your score, 30-24. I would keep it at that, too. I think it's going to be like that for sure.
Fire. So that's the 49ers this week, guys. We'll see how it goes. As always, we're going to have a post game. I will have that post game out, and yeah, man. Go 49ers. Bang, bang.
Yes, sir. All right. So we are going to go on over to the Philadelphia Eagles coming off of a exciting 10-7 victory against the Packers on Monday night. People paid great money to hop on ESPN just for that game because they couldn't figure stuff out on YouTube TV. And now, and then they get treated to a defensive showdown. What do you think about that?
Honestly, my initial thoughts, I'm just pissed off about this whole streaming thing. Like, it's already so expensive to watch your team throughout an entire season on all of the streaming platforms. Like, now you got to do this. Oh, like, dude, I have so many words, and I had so many words when we had to buy that game to watch it. But yeah, real quickly, the narrative in this ball game that came out afterward was that it was 2 mid quarterbacks going at each other. And while I understand where that came from, I think there's a certain level of underappreciation for the defense that was played in this game for both sides. I think both defenses actually did like a really good job of planning for the opposing offense. And, Eagles coming off of a bye week, you kind of expected them to be cooking, to be prepared and ready. And I think the Packers were ready for that first punch. And, the Eagles, when they're not able to necessarily strike first, those games kind of go either way at that point. When the Eagles are able to strike first, it's tough, especially if a team can't respond for them to keep up. And so I think the Packers kind of understood that. They're like, if we can really handle their first, second punches in this game, keep ourselves in this, like we've run a good chance. But I wanted a barn burner. I wanted a more fun game. I did appreciate the defense, but dude, like 10-7, I was snoozing.
I think a lot of that does come with, I think after halftime, I think both coaches kind of understood what the game was going to be. And they felt like, okay, every point's going to be earned. And if we don't capitalize here, we're probably not going to get many points moving forward. So that's why I think that Sirianni took the approach that he did, I think kind of for that reason. I think that's why Jalen turned down some of the decisions, made some of the decisions he made, turned down some of the throws to AJ that he did. And there was a little bit of in and out in this game with Lane Johnson coming in and out of this game. The O-line not performing that great. Jordan Mailata was slipping all over the place. It was another inconsistent Philadelphia Eagle game, and that has kind of been their MO all year. But you know what? I had a good time watching that game because of how impressive the Eagles defense was. I think this was the lowest scoring victory, lowest scoring game in the Nick Sirianni era that he's won. So that's an interesting one too. He is 10-0 against the NFC North, which was another stat I was unaware of as we gear up to play the Lions this week. But I think that this was a game that I expected more from the offense coming out of it. I thought there was going to be more. I was disappointed with some of the things that happened in this game. I believe Jalen could have been crisper. He missed more opportunities. He obviously left some throws out there. But I, by no stretch, and obviously the fumble happened, but that was a fluky one. That was a great job by the defender. That was a better defensive play than a Jalen Hurts, issue. So I'm not worried about that either. But the Eagles do have a tendency to, when they want to be aggressive, they'll be aggressive and they'll let it all hang. But then if one thing doesn't work for them, then they just won't run it. They're afraid of. They're like, oh, never mind. We're just going to do something else. And it's really interesting how they approach this. And they mold themselves into whatever the game is calling for at that time. It was all about needing to grind out, stop LaFleur in this offense that was inconsistent without Tucker Kraft. And it was an interesting spot for them. So I think that the Eagles defense and again the Packers defense, they both performed really, really well. And I think the Eagles had to make out, the Eagles won off of their talent, and that is the point of the NFL is when you have the most talent, you're going to get away with some of these things. And I think that's why with the Eagles it's a little bit easier versus like the Chiefs who had nobody and they were still kind of pulling off some of the wins that they were. But the Eagles have everybody. There's no excuse for us not to be winning these games even when we don't play that well. So that's kind of the spot that we're in. And I think that it's another week of AJ Brown drama, which I want to get your take on right now, but I'll set it up before we do this because AJ Brown went on a Twitch stream, so he was on with a streamer who was streaming video games. That's what they do, and that streamer, I believe, was a well-known Commanders fan. He's a Commanders guy. But AJ Brown hopped on that stream and played some Madden with him, and in that game, the streamer was like, "How are you, AJ?" And he's like, "What do you think, dude?" Like, and the guy was not good, man. He's like, "My family's good. Everything else, no, bro. Like, not good." And he made other comments in this stream, like, for all of you guys who own me on fantasy, drop me now, because it's a shit show. That's what he said, which is crazy and hilarious. It's funny in the moment too, right? So, and then AJ threw a touchdown to himself, or actually on that play, he made a comment. He was playing as the Eagles, and he threw a ball to himself. He's like, that's what happens when you get him involved. Let's get him involved. And then he's like, good things happen. And then he gets tackled at like the 5 when he was like showboating the whole. It was so funny. But so AJ is verbally saying these things, and now it's causing a stir. And Nick Sirianni has to answer for it to the point where Sirianni's saying, I'm done. I'm almost done with you guys asking this question now. And the hard part is they're allowing AJ Brown to do this, but I also think there's a level of there's half of the Eagles fan base that it's like pissed off and annoyed with this, and then there's the other side of the fan base that like at this point doesn't care anymore because AJ's just causing weekly drama at this point. And I'm gonna take the word of, everybody in the team, everybody in the building. You got Devontae backing him up. You got all these guys saying we're focused on. Nick Sirianni is like, I only go for the interactions that I got on a day-to-day basis. If they say they're good, I'm going to believe it. Just because they win or lose games doesn't mean that they're like, in this terrible place. AJ can want more and might not be happy with the situation now. I don't care. He's here now. Trade deadline's over. You're not going anywhere, buddy. So it's, love-hate relationship. Who cares? You're still going to be included when it matters most. He's had games over 100 yards this year. He's had games where he's been featured. It's not like we don't throw to him. Like, I understand, like, it's inconsistent, and it shouldn't be that way because it hasn't been that way. But I'm over it personally. So, like, in the sense of, like, I don't care anymore. Like, it's annoying that he does the antics, but, like, I don't think it affects us. Because if it was as detrimental like it was last year, we still won the Super Bowl. It's not like we can't navigate this. That's what Sirianni does, and that's what he has done. That's what Jalen's done. I think Jalen's got to the point where he's like, dude, it doesn't matter anymore. Y'all can't touch me. I can approach this how I want. So even if it's their friendship isn't the same, it doesn't matter. So, and there's been worse quarterback Eagle wide receiver relationships a la Donovan McNabb and T.O. There's been worse here in Philadelphia. So I think that it's just like, that's what's happened, but I wanted to get your take on the A.J. Brown drama. What do you think?
I think this whole thing is funny. I like, initially, like, I was like, here he goes again. Like, he's just, complaining and there's no reason to, because you're coming off of a win. Like, you should be fine right now. You should be happy. You guys are number one in the NFC, right? But then I remembered a key detail, and that he's a wide receiver. This is what they do, bro. Like, I saw this post the other day that was it was actually like a Commanders fan page. I can't believe they have those, but they do. But they said, like, does it make sense to re-sign Deebo Samuel if it means him basically they started off by saying at the beginning of the year he was great. The last 4 games, he's been trash. Does it make sense to re-sign him? And everybody in the comments was like, if it's the right deal, like if the money is low enough, And I'm like, okay, all that's logical. But what's not logical is that you think that, number one, a wide receiver would be willing to sign for a cheap deal, especially a wide receiver, number 2, by the name of Deebo Samuel. Like, these are just kind of the battles that you go through with wide receivers. Like, they're divas. Like, we've seen it now. Jawan Jennings on the 49ers, of all people. Like, you expected him to just be a dog and show up and just be himself. And now he, like, even throughout this year, has had some issues on and off the field with, coaches and the organization and pay and so on. So, like, this is just a thing at this point that I think you got to chalk it up. This is how A.J. Brown is. You got to appreciate the incredible plays that he makes when he's asked to make those plays. And you got to also just kind of take the crap that comes in with him, and that's part of having A.J. Brown. I mean, I don't think you guys will have him for much longer. So,
well, even if we do have to part ways with him, there's no way we're not going to end up the winners of that deal anyway. So, we've won the Super Bowl, right? That's it. Like, that's it. It really is that simple with the A.J. Brown era of it all. We got what we wanted out of him. He got what he wanted out of us. And he can go continue his career elsewhere if he wants to, because we've seen over the past 2 weeks, we don't use him and it doesn't matter. So we can win with or without him. And the Eagles are talented enough to do so. I think they've developed enough to be able to do so. I'm not saying it's not easier and nicer having A.J. Brown in there. He still draws attention. You saw on that play with Saquon, he got up, he went and blocked for Saquon, got a few more yards that way for him. And you saw on the Devontae Smith touchdown, he drew the defense in and allowed So it's not like he's not impacting the game. The teams still respect him, because that's also the part of the narrative too, is like, it could be reverse psychology. Everyone just assumes that we're going to go to A.J. every week, every time he complains. And then we still don't use him, but you guys still game plan for him. So you don't know these things are coming. So at this point, it is just fodder. It's like, let AJ be AJ, which is kind of the approach I've been taking the past few weeks. So that's kind of the brain rot around the Eagles. That's like what it is at this point. It's just content. He's just there to be there. And he's still the best receiver that we have. I mean, Devontae and him, 1A, 1B. And, we're still talented enough. And I think that it's not going to change our approach. The Eagles aren't going to change their approach. They just for the outside noise. They're going to do what they think is best, and that's part of the issue. I think that we can be too stubborn for our own good. You had texted me during the game, and this was true. I've never really pointed this out before, but the Eagles do lead the league in 3 and outs. And for an offense that, is the most expensive offense in the league, you shouldn't be having as many 3 outs as you do. And part of that reason is their commitment to not, you know, being creative on first down. They're going to run the ball. They don't care. They will do it. Even if you know that it's coming and they know that they're still going to run it and set themselves up for weird third down spots. And then when it's 3rd and 12, they're just going to run the ball. That's what this has been their MO this year. They've almost said, okay, didn't work this time. Next, and then we'll just try again. Our defense will save us. We'll do it again. And then we'll just hit on 3 big plays a game and we win the game somehow. I don't know how sustainable that is, but we also have had games where we played really well. We need that. They'll play really well collectively if we want to beat the Detroit Lions this week. So let's pivot on to that, because the Detroit Lions coming to Philadelphia. They were on the road against Washington, a really bad Commanders team right now. So Dan Campbell was calling plays, took the role from their offensive coordinator, Kevin Morton, I think is his name, which kind of an underrated topic because they cooked a really crappy Commanders defense. So they're like, oh, look at Dan Campbell, like taking the reins, like being a leader. And it'll be very interesting to see how this offense looks with Dan Campbell calling plays against a defense that seems revitalized. And yes, we had the second retirement mid-season with Jair Alexander, who we just acquired in the trade deadline, leaving, saying he needs for personal reasons to recover from this injury that he got in the offseason, so he was still hurt. But we got Jacorian Bennett back, and I'll go over the list here in a second for the injury report. But I don't think the Eagles are that worried about it. Obviously, they traded for 2 corners, and now they have Jacorian Bennett back in the fold. So we're getting healthier. Our defensive front, our front 7, front 8 guys that we have now looked healthy, did a great job against the Packers. They are going to be extremely important against this Lions team. It is going to be the defense that will need to win this game for the offense, because I do expect inconsistency from the Eagles, but I don't expect the performance that they had against the Packers. And when you look at the nerd stats, this was the worst regular season performance in the Nick Sirianni era. This was the second worst offensive performance since the playoff blowout to the Buccaneers a few years ago. So I don't anticipate them playing worse than what they played on Monday. I think they went up against a top 5 defense and who had their number and who played really well against them in the playoff game last year defensively. So it wasn't like these are 2 teams that understand each other now, the Packers and the Eagles. But the Lions and the Eagles haven't played since 2022. Both teams, this was the matchup that was supposed to happen in the NFC Championship last year before the Commanders robbed the Lions of that opportunity. I think the Lions have been chomping at the bit to play the Eagles for years because they want to prove, it's just been kind of like what ifs for both of these teams in the NFC. So this is a fun matchup that people, this is a Sunday night football game. It's going to be national attention. It's going to be a perfect night in Philly, 50-degree weather, maybe a little windy, but it's going to be a nice setting. It's a big game. Like, we beat the Packers, we took care of business, but this is an important game for seeding purposes, for tiebreaker purposes. The Lions are right there, and they would share the same record as us if they win, and we would fall in the standings, I believe, to 3rd, depending on how the rest of the weekend plays out. But before I get into the matchups, I think that this game, narrative-wise, is really important, and I do think that people's approach on this game is going to be very one-sided. I think that they're going to talk about the Lions like, oh, they cooked last week, but the Eagles barely beat the Packers. They looked awful. And I think they're going to get a little bit of, revisionist history and forget that the Eagles can play better. They will be at home against a team that is going to give them their best punch. So what are you looking for, or what are you excited for with this matchup for the Eagles and the Lions?
I mean, you kind of highlighted it. I'm excited because this was the matchup that, a lot of NFL fans, but especially I feel like Lions fans and the organization's been waiting for a while. This is big from a seeding standpoint. This is big from understanding where both of these teams are at standpoint. I'm leaning Lions right now. And I've played with this game. I'm still playing with this game in my head, really. And what it boils down to is how much I trust Philly. Off the pod, you and I kind of talked about it even today, as early as today. Like, I will watch every Eagles game because we do this podcast and it's fun. Um, but damn, bro, I do not enjoy watching the Eagles play football this year because, and you said it best earlier, like a couple things don't go your way and you get away from like your normal. And like, I don't know, it's just like there's some things that drive me nuts with this Eagles team, and 10 points on Monday. I mean, you know, granted, Packers team played good defense. Michael Parsons is legit guys in that defense for sure. But you got to have better defense and offense in this one against the Lions. Like, this is a Lions team that, yes, while they're dealing with a lot of injuries right now, they've kind of built this identity of we're not just going to go down, you know, against any team. Like, we are going to go down. If we're going to go down, it's, you know, we're going down with a fight. And this is the thing that I'm kind of looking at in this game. It's like, you know, if this is a close one, yes, it favors Philly because you're in Philadelphia. But early on, if you guys struggle to move the football offensively, this Lions team is going to find ways to put up points. And Dan's going to go for it on fourth just as much as the Eagles do. So it's going to be a battle of guts. It's going to be a, you know, battle of who's going to kind of, yes, stick to their guns, but also take the chances, take the shots. And I haven't seen the shots and the chances enough from Philly this year. So what I'm looking for in this one is what team is willing to really take the chance, take a shot, do something that, you know, otherwise you wouldn't expect in a certain situation. And that to me is, I think, what's going to win you, or, you know, this ball game.
No, I love those takes. So let's go into the injury report just to kind of paint a little bit more of a picture before I get into my keys here. So we got, for the Lions here, did not participate today. It's kind of a long list, and there's some important names on here. Terrion Arnold was out with a concussion. Aiden Hutchinson did not participate with an elbow. I anticipate him. Some of these big names that you hear, I'm anticipating that they're mainly going to be back. Like Sam Laporta didn't practice. Penei Sewell didn't practice. Kirby Joseph has missed the past couple weeks. I anticipate that's going to continue. So that's a huge piece of their back seven here. And Terry and Arnold with the concussion, he needs to clear protocol. The fact that he didn't participate today isn't a good sign. Normally, if a guy's going to clear concussion protocol, they are limited on Wednesday. They're limited Wednesday, Thursday. Then they get that process, participate in full on Friday, and meet that requirement to play on Sunday. So I think it's become, because they've taken a lot more seriously. So I don't know if Terry and Arnold's going to be playing. So I like our guys I like our receivers in this matchup to be able to win those matchups on the edge, on the outside. And when we look at, I don't know Aiden Hutchinson's injury. Maybe he is dealing with an elbow. He played every snap, all but 4 last game. So I still think he'll be out there. But Marcus Davenport was limited. And they've had some injuries too. Guys missing a lot more time. So I think that the Lions defense can be got, but they have a cool, like, their coaching staff is cool. Like, their defensive coordinator, Kelvin Shepard, he has a little juice to him. He's been coaching them up pretty well. And I've enjoyed the energy that they bring. And I think that's going to be another thing, is going to be our coaching staff versus theirs. That's one of the highlights of this game. It's going to be really huge to see what these guys can do with some of the guys that are coming back and some of the guys that they're going to be missing in this game. For the Eagles, there's no one that didn't participate. So this is a great sign. Limited was Landon Dickerson with a quad, Lane Johnson with an ankle, Cam Jurgens with a knee, and Tyler Steen with an oblique. So 4 out of our 5 starters were limited today on the offensive line. Cam Jurgens has missed the past 2 weeks. We've been playing with Brett Toth, so it's good to see him at least as a limited participant. Don't know his status or if he'll actually be able to play, but I hope that would be the case, because we would love to have Cam Jurgens back on that O-line. Full participant, I had mentioned earlier, Jacorian Bennett is back in the fold. We'll probably be seeing those snaps outside, next to Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson will play. He'll probably start at cornerback too, but if need some rest, then we'll probably be seeing some Jacorian Bennett snaps there. And Nolan Smith was a full participant. He was listed on there for his tricep, so he's recovering, still coming back. He came back last week. So the Eagles are looking about as healthy as you can be. So, and the Lions have some key injuries that are going to leave some holes for them for the Eagles to take advantage of. So I think if I were to go for my keys, listen, they can criticize this Eagles offense all they want, but I do think that the Eagles are going to be able to generate enough big plays. I think it's going to be, I don't know how to describe it because I believe it's going to be which quarterback makes the least amount of mistakes in this game. I think it's going to be a game where Jalen's going to need to have a nice performance. It doesn't need to be this insane performance, but he needs to have more than what he had. He needs to hit on more of the throws that he had than compared to last week. And we're going to force Jared Goff to have to beat us. They have a two-headed monster at running back with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and our run defense has improved, especially with Jalen Phillips and Nolan Smith and Brandon Graham. Like we all of a sudden have bodies to throw. So our run defense is kind of better than what it was before, but that's still a tough matchup. And I would not be surprised if Fangio just puts all of his resources into stopping the run and daring Jared Goff to beat us. Not that he can't. He's a guy that when he's streaky, if he gets hot and they're finding open holes on the offense, they're going to cook. But we also have the guys on the back end to make things difficult. So we can dictate, I believe, the Eagles defense can dictate how they want to approach this, especially with Jalen Phillips looking the way that he did. This defense felt that was as close to 2024. We held the Green Bay Packers to 7 points. That's no easy feat. They're a top 10 scoring offense in the league, albeit inconsistent, whatever. But I feel pretty good about the Eagles defense against this Lions offense, and that'll be the matchup to watch. That'll be the matchup that dictates this whole game. Is Jared Goff versus Vic Fangio? Can Jared Goff outduel Vic Fangio? I don't think Vic Fangio is going to throw many blitzes. The last game was the least amount of blitzes that they had, and they generated the second highest pressure rate that they had all year with just rushing the four guys and mixing coverages that way. So I feel like we have what it takes schematically to cause trouble for the Lions. I think it is going to be a game that goes back and forth. I think the Eagles offense is going to have to step up and make big plays. I'm nervous about our rushing offense against this, Lions front. Aiden Hutchinson is a threat every time we play, but if Lane Johnson, it looked like he came back in that game and he looked like he was hurt, like pretty bad. But Lane Johnson's a warrior. But that's a hard matchup against Aiden Hutchinson. But he's gone up against Micah Parsons and the tough guys, and he stands his ground. But that will be Aiden Hutchinson's a game wrecker, but Eagles do pretty well against those kind of guys in these spots. So I'm just excited, man. I think that this is going to be a fun game. I think it's again at Philly on Sunday night. The attention's going to be on there. There's going to be a tush push. It's gonna go wrong. Dan Campbell, I all the respect in the world. He has been doing nothing but defending the tush push and saying, hey, you got to stop it type of thing. He's like, if they take one thing away, you got to take this away. And soon the game's going to be 30 minutes and soon we're not playing with any pads. And I love that mentality. And that's what I love about these coaching staffs. I think that the culture for both of these teams is very similar. I think the Eagles physicality, we're going to try and run it down your throat. We're going to try and, win with submission. And that's exactly what the Lions have tried to adopt and approach, and that's how they win games too. So I just think it's going to be a fun matchup. This is what you want. This is the gauntlet the Eagles are going to be going through. They're going to have to go through some of these great teams that are going to be challenging them this year. The NFC is the stronger conference this year. So this is what it takes, and I'm excited for this matchup. If I had to pick a score for this game, I have it being higher scoring than people think. It'll probably be 31-24 Philadelphia.
Wow, a whole 7 points. So Eagles are 2.5 point favorites.
Mm-hmm. Not in a dome.
God, dude, you're gonna force me to make a freaking decision right now. Like I said, man, this game against the Packers, coming off of the bye, rubbed me from an offensive standpoint. It rubbed me the wrong way. And this is a team you got to keep up with offensively. I get the Eagles have kind of figured out, especially the rush defense, which was questionable in the early stage of the season. That seems to have leveled out a bit. Your corner situation is getting better with now, not Jair, but now you're getting health back. So I'm going to take the Lions in this. My gut My gut tells me to go with the Eagles, and I'm not gonna lie to you, but my heart feels like, just based on like how the Lions have played games against contending teams, they're going to be the ones who take the shots. And if they convert on those shots, they're going to be the ones who come out on top. This is where the Eagles will win this game, is on defense. If they're able to shut down those, whatever those shots are downfield, whatever, if it's Jameer and like whatever it is that they are trying to take a swing at and really hit big on, if you guys can eliminate that a couple times in the game, you're going to run a good chance of winning. But I'm going to take the Lions in this one, and I've got the Lions closer than 7 points, but I also think it's going to be a higher scoring game. I'm going to say it's 27-25 Lions.
I love that. And you know what? Again, for me, if you can, my belief in this game, with the way that both of these teams are set up, if you're daring Jared Goff to throw the ball 40 to 45 times on you and ask him to win that way, I think that's exactly what the Eagles want. And if they slow down the run game and Jared Goff cooks, I won't even be mad at it. I'll be like, Jared Goff cooks. That's, simple as that. Some guys get hot. Maybe he just hits every throw next game. But with the way teams like to play against the Eagles, you buckle a little bit. You drop a pass that you don't normally drop. You make a costly penalty that you're not used to making. Like, things like that have been happening against the Eagles. And speaking of, random take before we get off here on the Eagles, I do think, like, we're watching these games this year, and it's not just the Eagles games. You're watching any game that features a sneak now, and there's a false start that doesn't get called. And sure, the Eagles, those games with the Eagles, they get more attention because it's the tush push is our play, right? But I'm thinking right now, with the way it's being called, it just feels so egregious and so obvious this year, the ones that are being missed. I almost think, like, this is conspiracy theorist Marcos coming out here for a second. I think that Roger Goodell said, okay, well, we can't convince everybody this is a safety issue, because it's not. It's a normal legal play, so we can't say that it's like, you can say it's not fun to watch, sure. But their excuse that they've been able to use is, oh, it's tough to officiate. They never mentioned those lines ever about the play. People just said they didn't like how they looked on the broadcast. It didn't become a ref issue until this season. Until the year that, okay, we're so close to banning it, let's get it banned. So I think it's interesting that, let's just make every sneak an obvious, blatant missed call. So then it's not even just the Eagles. Oh, it doesn't look like we're targeting the Eagles. Everyone, this is just, sneaks are just hard. So now let's just ban it all together, guys. That's my little theory. I don't know what you think about that.
I want to kind of build on that. Like, I agree when you also consider they will catch the slightest of flinches from an offensive lineman that you wouldn't otherwise think was like even there, but you're going to miss some of these blatant like false starts. So I agree. I think there's something to that. Like, yeah, it might be the only angle that the NFL has at getting rid of it is by saying that, well, we can't officiate this play. So, it might be one that we have to get rid of. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I thought about that this week because, it's the same thing. Like, whenever Josh Allen runs a sneak, no one says anything. But whenever the Eagles run a sneak, it's like, oh, they're cheating every single time. And so, like, listen, I'm with you guys that, like, a penalty should be called. I don't like that either. It sucks that, like, my team gets away with it as much as they do. I wish that they just called the game right. Like, I get that. So that's why I just wonder, like, this was never an issue until this year. So, like, why now? Why does it have to get in the way? But listen, if I'm coaches, I'm taking full advantage of that. I'm running sneaks every chance I get because they're not going to call it this year. They're going to let you get away with it this year. That's how the NFL is going to call these games. So go for it. Just get away with it. Like, you'll get screwed once a game, but like 5 out of your 6 sneaks are going to work if you false start, and it won't matter. So take advantage of that, guys. Like, at this point, the Eagles will. Other teams have to until they change the rule, ban it, or stop it. Like, just take advantage, guys. Don't be moral. Just go for it. Get the dubs. All right, okay. That's enough on the Eagles. That's enough on football. We will be right back to have what's going to be becoming increasingly shorter conversations about the Sacramento Kings in the NBA. So we will be right back. All right, we are back on the Behind the Back podcast. We're here, whether you like it or not, to talk about the freaking Sacramento Kings, who are down by 20 right now at halftime to the Atlanta Hawks, which we will begrudgingly maybe not watch later on our own time. Because you know what? I don't know how convinced I am. This isn't going to be the team that we're seeing in 6 months. So why should I care, right? Okay, but before we get into the whole existential crisis of it all, we need to address some real news with the Sacramento Kings. I like the shirt, by the way. That's sick. This Doug Christie took it upon himself yesterday against the before the Nuggets game that the Kings lost, not surprisingly. But before that game, Doug Christie held a press conference. No questions, more of a statement. And he kind of sent a message to the haters, haters like me, probably, who have said some ill stuff about the Sacramento Kings. But I wanted to toss it to you, kind of get your feel, because, you've been the optimist so far on this team as the years gone on. You've been the one who, tries to find the light in the dark end of the tunnel here. But what did you, did that stunt by Doug Christie at that point, did that do anything for you? Was there a message in there that you got from it at all?
I loved it. I love the approach that Doug had to it. I'll give him that. But it feels so empty when you follow it up with the two performances that, we're basically seeing. There was one thing that stood out to me above everything that I do want to kind of talk about. And he said that, like, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have exact words, but he essentially said there's been, aside from me, two guys sitting in this seat who truly understand what Kings fans have gone through: Rick Adelman and Jerry Reynolds. Two guys who were around the franchise for years, right? And Jerry Reynolds, I'd argue, was more, it's not an argument, he's more around the Kings than even that of like a Doug Christie. So, dude, like, while I loved what Doug said and how he approached that, it's like, we're here to, we recognize the issues that we have. We recognize that this is going to be a climb. This is going to be a rocky climb. This is going to be a battle. We recognize that changes need to be made. And, I get that. That's cool. That's great. It just felt like he was focused on the noise more than he was focused in that moment on actually helping his team. And that's not to say that he's not out there grinding every practice and trying to make this team better in any way, shape, or form he can. I think he's been dealt a shit hand of cards. But it also goes to say, like, let's be real, this team is garbage. And the media is talking about it like they're garbage. Not just the NBA media, but the local media is talking about this team as if it's garbage. And I think everybody at this point has been subject to such a poor disorganization in a lot of ways that it's just tiresome at this point. And unfortunately, Doug is at the head of that team snake, and he's the guy who is got to answer a lot of these questions. I think he's a new coach who's handling adversity that not many coaches want to handle right now. And this is a tough situation for him. So, two things. I loved it. I love that he came out and had a fire to him, but I feel like it was a little misplaced. Like, it felt like he was attacking the media versus attacking the organization and the plan moving forward. So, yeah, I was the optimist going into the season. I'm going to tell you right now, I love this team. I love the Kings. Thank you, Dad, for giving me this horrendous disease of being a Kings fan ever since the day I can remember my own name. I've been a Kings fan. So, this team I love. And what I don't love is just how consistently stupid this organization continues to be. Now, recent reports have suggested, per Carmichael Dave, that a rebuild is seemingly around the corner. I've heard that before. It's never felt like a rebuild needed to be this obvious or this necessary as it is in this moment. But dude, we are just over 10 games into the season. We're getting blown out on our home court for the third straight time on our home court. And it just feels like this season's already a wash. Like, it's frustrating to be a Kings fan right now. Like, and it sucks that every time we've hopped on this damn podcast this year, it's been nothing but negative. When just a year ago we were nothing but positive. Like, it's frustrating, right? So I'm gonna toss this back to you before I get us canceled. But I've got to say, like, the Russell Westbrook thing is fun. I think that's a breath of fresh air. You got a legend in your building, whether he's tainting his legacy or not. It's not our legacy, so I'm happy about it. Like I said, I'm a Russell Westbrook guy. I love what I'm seeing from Russ. At this point, start Russ. I don't know why the hell we're still starting Dennis Schroeder, but here we are. Yeah, there's a big money issue, right? It's politics. So I love the Russell Westbrook thing. If this team is serious about a rebuild, and what it sounds like is, if it's true, it starts in December, as early as December, when things kind of open up and you see the big splash trades start to happen. If it happens, if it really does start in December, then this team by the end of the season is going to be entirely different. And I'm not going to lie to you, I hope it is. Take it away.
Well, Ben, let's flip back to optimism for a second. I just looked at the standings, my boy. We're only a game back from 10th, bro. We're in this.
Whoa.
We are in this at 3-8, because the way the West is set up, the Utah Jazz are currently in that 10th spot at 4-7. So we have the tiebreaker. So we can, we're one game back. Injuries have taken over teams like the Clippers. The Grizzlies are a disaster. The Pelicans are somehow worse than us, and the Mavericks too, 3-9. They've been going through their own struggles. So for the front office, for Vivek, the formula still goes. The formula moves on. Play-in is right within reach. Why would we trade any of our guys away? We paid Dennis $15 million only for Russ to put up a triple-double. Happy birthday, Russ.
Yeah, happy birthday, Russ.
Like, that game was electric. That was a lot of fun. So we're going to get that. Why would the Kings start the guy who they clearly are showing buyer's remorse over and play any of the young guys who actually impact the game? Keon didn't, got a DNP during the stretch. Played 14 minutes yesterday against the Nuggets in the first quarter, though, so it was early instead of 13 minutes with some time in the fourth quarter the other game against the Thunder. I mean, Nick Clifford's cool. I really like him. We saw Maxime Reynaud get some time. That was interesting. That was cool. That was cool. He got a cool little block. Like, yeah, he had some moments. I thought we have Precious Achiuwa to the fold. The Kings are allergic to players over 7 feet outside of Maxime. And we don't have any direction. We're wasting minutes on guys who I don't want to see on the floor anymore. DeMar DeRozan's an awesome ISO scorer, but when he's on the floor, the ball has to go to him, or it's a deemed a wasted possession. Zach LaVine can't get cooking. Zach LaVine's been inconsistent. Russ has been the most consistent, and Keon have been the most consistent pieces on our team, and it's no fun. And people are like, "Hey," and I was like this literally last week. Wait till Keegan comes back. The potential, maybe. But, like...
What if Keegan's not here?
Yeah.
What if Keegan gets traded?
I don't think they trade Keegan. But the problem is he is their biggest bargaining chip. if they wanted a star, like a star, that would be the contract. Then you would pair that with like another stud contract. So maybe it's not impossible, right? If Luke can get traded, anyone can get traded, right? So, it's not off the table. Keegan is not untouchable. He's not Scott's guy. So, this is an interesting world we live in. We went from like we can't even talk about these games anymore. Why would I talk to you? Why would I talk to you guys about like a 101-140 loss? Like to 137 to 108 loss or whatever. It's a waste of time. This team is going down, but we still have, we're a game back from the play-in, so we're not done yet. But this team isn't going to look interesting until they give us the product that we want, and that's why Doug gave his speech saying that him and ownership and everyone's in lockstep, as a typical scapegoat would have to say, the setup. We're in support. We're all on the same page, so you guys can crap on me, and then I get fired, in 50 games from now. So this is an interesting setup. I'm over this team. I'm still here. We're still making a run for the play-in. That was what I deemed a successful season. So if we somehow pull it off, you know what? We're still in it. We'll have a shot. So that's where I'm at right now.
Let me ask you this. On the subject of rebuild, I'm going to run down our roster. I want 3 names that you want to keep. You already know them? I don't even need to run down the roster because I probably have the same ones. Okay. So go ahead.
The 3 players I would keep if Doug Christie was still the head coach of this vision of the future: Keegan, Keon, Neek. Those would be my 3.
I think those are the 3. I think at this point, like if the Kings were smart, and I mean, they're not, but if they were, you would approach this trade deadline and these next 3 seasons. I think a rebuild, you got to minimum be 2 years. I think a true rebuild takes 3 years before you are competing at a genuine level again. But again, I've never been subject to a true rebuild, so what do I know? But you take Keegan Murray, you take Keon Ellis, and you take Nick Clifford, and you say those are my untouchables. Now everybody else, you're on the market. Give me your best offers. Even if it's not a great offer, I think you take it, because the thing is, running it back with the same team right now is like beating your head against a metal steel door. Like you're just killing yourself slowly. So I agree with you. Like if the route really is rebuild, it should be. If the route is actually going to be a rebuild, I think you take those 3 guys and you say those are the only untouchables on my roster, and you devote yourself to number 1 picks. Like, no, I'm not saying the number 1 pick, but I'm saying in order, your priority is you want picks, and then you want youth, and from there, then you go, okay, like a vet on a minimum where he's only here through the end of the season, and then we don't have to worry about it. Then it's a free roster spot, right? So I think that's the way to approach this thing, because at this point you've taken this roster, you've constructed this roster so poorly, and you've put a product on the floor that's getting blown out, mind you, on the second night of a back-to-back, but against an Atlanta Hawks team without a Trae Young on it. They do play better without Trae, which is funny. But home court advantage doesn't exist for this team anymore. And you're also not lowering ticket prices necessarily. So fans aren't going to be too thrilled to go and sell out of, the Golden One Center if you're not seeing a beam but 3 nights out of every 12. So it's rebuild or nothing for this team right now, because at this point, like I asked you a week ago, if a successful season, I think it was a week ago, if a successful season in your eyes was make the play-in, at this point for me, it's not. Like I've seen enough through these through this season so far where I'm at a point where it's like, okay, you make the play-in, you're banking on Nick Clifford getting better and Keegan Murray taking another step. Past that, it's a whole bunch of vets. And like, I get you have Maxime Renaud, but like, he's not your number one option. He's not your guy that you took and drafted like it was Nick. So I just like, rebuild is the way. And if you don't rebuild this year, in my opinion, it's a failure. Even if you make it to the first round of the playoffs and you win the first round of the playoffs, in my eyes, at this point, the season's a wash because you need to rebuild. This roster is not sustainable long term.
I think where the Kings find their biggest issue is just the fact that they trap themselves in like a weird spot. You know, they, with the Dennis signing, with the contracts that they have, it's tough, I think. But certain teams, if desperate enough, injuries happen, and we're seeing that. You know, like for example, like the Clippers, they lost Bradley Beal for the season, right? You know, they might be in the market for another scorer, or maybe Houston gets desperate enough, or maybe another team suffers a catastrophic injury and needs one of our guys. And all these people who are like calling our guys trash, they're like, oh, they'd look so good on our roster, like for sure. And maybe the Kings get lucky. Maybe an opportunity presents themselves, right? But the new CBA, the way this, you know, moving contracts around, moving players around is not as easy as it was before. So the Kings are in a weird spot where we probably are only going to be able to make like one or two major moves max in season, and we're going to have to try and do one or two major moves in the offseason if we're truly trying to offload everything and anything and everything. It's not going to be as simple as one trade or two trades are going to fix everything. And I think that's the hard part. That's why it's like, if we already knew this was the route that we were going to go down, why did we pay Dennis money? Why didn't we pay a younger player, a younger wing guy to come here, or even a veteran wing to come here that was more a fit? Or if we were already going to commit, again, we committed to all offensive players. We committed to an undersized team that has defensive issues. So didn't do anything to adjust it, so we're kind of getting bit in the ass for it. That's just how it is. And you know what? I'm okay with that. It is what it is. It's going to force us to, you know, we're going to, again, try for the plan, see what happens, and it doesn't matter. Maybe we get the number one pick, who knows? But maybe we get the 12th pick again, who knows? Like, that's nothing. The NBA is it's as unpredictable and as much parity as there's ever been, which is why we still have a freaking chance somehow when we're about to be 3-8 or 3-9. 3-9. Crazy. Like, we still have a shot. So it's going to be frustrating when we have to like lie to ourselves. Like, once we get to play, and you'll hear fans like, made the play in, they were close, they could have won 50-50 game, whatever. I don't know, man. Nothing's going to do anything for me unless all of a sudden Doug just plays all the young guys like out of nowhere, benches all the old guys and plays the young guys, or once we start seeing actual changes on the roster. Until then, this is about as disinterested as I have felt in one of my own teams in quite some time. Like, this isn't even like, I had more fun watching like the early Fox days, even when we knew they were garbage, because Fox was exciting. The Boogie days, because Boogie was an insane player. We don't have that anymore, and it's frustrating.
Well, and it's deeper, like building off what you're saying. When it was the early Fox days, yeah, you were trash, but you also knew that Fox was going to get better. And you knew he was going to turn into a star. Like, that's why you drafted him when you did. That's why Sacramento was as high on them as they were. Like, we all knew what the potential was. So even if we were trash, we had something to look forward to. And I remember, like, you had De'Aaron Fox, you had Bogey, you had Justin Jackson, like you had Willie Cauley-Stein, and what did we deem it? Super team just young. Like Scout LaVissiere, like we had all these dogs, bro, and they were trash. Like, that was not a good team, but there was so much like potential in, at the very least, your friend, what you wanted to be your franchise player at the time in De'Aaron Fox, and it panned out. That's right now what's missing. And that's kind of what I was alluding to. It's like, whoop-de-doo, you make the play and you make the playoffs. You win a freaking playoff series. Awesome. That's really cool, guys. What do we have to look forward to next year? Nick Clifford's year 2 development? Like, I love Nick. I think Nick's an awesome player. He's not going to be a franchise player. If I miss on that, my bad. I'll own that. I don't think he's going to be one. If you do, great. I love that. I love that optimism. So this is, I'm just stuck right now. I agree with you. This is the lowest I've been on any team of mine ever. And I watched the Niners drop 3 Super Bowls. This Kings team, I've seen them win 17 games in a season, and they still had a better start to their season than this team does. So, and I don't think this team's going to finish with 17 wins. I think the month of November royally effed them. But, it's tough right now. It's tough to be a fan. It's tough to talk about this team. Like, shout out to Sac Media. They're doing a great job talking about this team on a night-to-night basis and not ripping every last bit of their hair out, because it's difficult. It's really difficult to find anything positive to say about this team. But light the beam, baby. Go Kings.
Light the beam, go Kings. Russell Westbrook, you're the GOAT. Let's just ride this Russell Westbrook train until it's up. Right, you were right about this one, so I'll let you. Take that. That's what we're gonna ride with. Just Russell Westbrook, keep putting up numbers so we can trade you for a first. So let's hope someone bites the bullet. But again, interesting spot for the Kings. We'll see what happens. I don't care. I'm going to pay attention. We will address some things as they come. There's going to be a lot of changes happening. We'll see what happens when Keegan Murray comes back. Precious Achiuwa is getting involved more. Cool. Hooray. We're still... Well, let's see real quick. Maybe in this conversation. No, they're not. Are they really? See? I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. That's really disappointing. So, you get your hopes up. And
I'm sorry. It's 29.
Yeah.
There's still a chance.
You get your hopes up, and there's no one on the starting 5, and there's no one on the Kings with double figures. We're doing great, guys. Third quarter. Oh, wow. Yeah, disappointing, guys. So, it's another game. Flush it. We'll talk about their next loss. It'll be just fine. But, Ben told me to hold on.
So Matt George, Frankie Cardicelli just tweeted out, Doug Christie just subbed in a young lineup as the Kings trail by 26 with 9 to go in the third quarter. That young lineup is Devin Carter, Keon Ellis, Neek Clifford, Daquan Plowden, Maxime Reynaud. All 5 starters were taken out during the timeout. See, and that's the approach that's going to give me hope, because there's development in that for your young players. You're accepting a form of tanking, which in the NBA, tanking doesn't land you necessarily a number 1 pick, but what it does grant you is a top pick of some sort. You're almost guaranteed, if not guaranteed, really high chance a lottery pick. And a lottery pick in this draft this year is going to be a really good pick. So I wouldn't be too mad at that if you really did commit to a young lineup the rest of the year, but it's not going to happen. But I do appreciate Doug. Shout out Doug. You made the right call in the third. Your boys suck tonight in the starting 5. It's time to roll these youngsters.
And I can't wait for the youngsters to pull us back in this game. We're going to get down by 10. We're going to put in the starters, and they're going to choke this game away. And it's going to be exactly what happened in the Denver game. And when we set ourselves up, our starting 5 played awful, and our bench players were cooking, and then we decided to not ride with the hot hand. So we'll see. But good. This is a lineup I wasn't anticipating. Summer League lineup. I'm taking it. That's what I want. This is exactly what I'm here for. And I bet you guys they're going to look efficient. They're going to look great. Hopefully. You never know. I mean, they're down 30. It's a new game for them at this point, so it doesn't really matter. But hey, I'm all here. I'm here for it. That's what I want to see. So hopefully we start seeing more of these lineups in the future as they dwindle down some of these vets, as they make some changes to the roster that inevitably are going to happen. But it's just a matter of when, not if, for these Kings fans. So with that being said, guys, I think we're going to leave it right here. Do you got any final thoughts before we head out of here, Benny?
No, sir. I'm good.
All right, so we will leave that here. This was episode 110 of the Behind the Back podcast. You can hit us up at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. For all y'all watching on YouTube, all of our descriptions to our social medias are up above. For all you audio listeners out there, the links to the descriptions are down below. Please give us a like, subscribe, rate, review, and follow the show. We appreciate all the love and support that we get on a week-to-week basis. For you Niners fans, how many of you guys think that you're going to make the playoffs this year, sneak in at that 6 or 7 seed? Do you guys think like Benny that you're going to be able to peel off some wins here against a lighter schedule? For you Eagles fans out there, how confident are you that we can get the number 1 seed this year, rattle off some wins against some really tough opponents? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And for you Kings fans, do you feel the way we do? Or you guys think, hey, we're gunning for the play-in, we have a chance, huh? You think we got that? We'll talk about that later. You guys let us know what you guys think. Do we think we have a chance for the play-in, or are we just ass like we have been all year? Join our side, please. With that being said, I'm Marcos Conan. Beside me here, as always, is
Ben the Jet Reds.
all right, y'all. We love y'all. We will talk to you next week.
Peace.